This is our Wix website for our ESOL 2 case study. Our case study is on a student named George. He is 8 years old in second grade. His ESOL level is emergent. His language is Spanish and his country of origin is Venezuela. So he did come to Florida about 1 year ago, and his mother said it was because their country was dangerous and they were political refugees. So he has not been in the country for long. He has, within that year that he has been here, moved from an LYA student, or primarily monolingual, to an LYB student, which is limited proficiency in English. His mother, we believe, is a nurse, and his father is an Uber driver. His teacher shared that he is a gifted math student. His English proficiency has grown since he came in September, but he is not interested in ELA topics. He meets with a bilingual paraprofessional for about 15 minutes every day. He also meets with his teacher in a small group of LYA and LYB students. They meet during independent reading time in the classroom, so they don't miss any instructional time. He is very frustrated during the writing block, so most of our phase 4 focuses on the writing, because this is where he has his frustration and struggles. George is very talkative and has a lot of friends at schools, but his friends primarily consist of other bilingual students whom he communicates with in Spanish. So that's also going to be a focus of ours in phase 4, because we want him to begin communicating with his peers in English. For his linguistic development, he attended formal schooling in Venezuela for kindergarten and first grade. All of his instruction was in Spanish, and he had not learned any English during that time until he moved to the United States about a year ago. We learned that George likes to read on his own and is not required to, and his teacher did confirm this by emphasizing how focused and interested he becomes during independent reading time. So we can conclude that although he has a struggle with writing, he does not have a struggle with reading and does have some interest when it comes to that. George's parents speak to him in Spanish at home. He did express that his mother could speak a little bit of English, but his father did not know any when they came to Florida. He is still developing in both BICS and CALP. When it comes to BICS, he tends to speak Spanish with his peers and his friend group. So he is working on developing that. He strays away from using English when he doesn't have to. For CALP, he sticks to vocabulary words he is familiar with, and he has a bit of a struggle when he tries to find the word to provide answers when asked to rephrase his answers. George is just quite clearly stronger in his L1 language than his L2 language. For data collection, we have his speaking and reading recording, his transcription of his speaking sample, and we have our writing samples. So overall, we gave him a solemn score of 8. This is representative of all 3 samples. So we analyzed each sample based on the skills that he was showing within them. And we gave him a comprehension score of 1, a fluency score of 2, a vocabulary score of 1, pronunciation score of 3, and grammar score of 1. This all adds up to 8, which is a lower solemn score, which also aligns with our assignment of his ESOL level of being emergent. For the problem scenario, we chose to focus on the fact that he is not quite as comfortable with writing. He certainly prefers speaking over writing, and he gets very frustrated during writing lessons. He completely shuts down and becomes quiet and has a slight attitude. This is our problem that we are choosing to tackle. For the stakeholders, we have George's parents, They are very supportive of their son's education. He did have to retake first grade upon entering the United States. His parents believe that he is getting the support that he needs, but also do not help quite as much at home because they are quite busy with work. For the principal, there is a lot of support that is provided for ELLs through paraprofessionals like one that George is seeing on a regular basis, and ESOL endorsed staff. The principal truly believes that it is her and her other faculty members' responsibility to ensure that all ELLs feel comfortable in their school environment. For the school counselor perspective, the counselor does seem to see a trend in his emotional struggles affecting his academic achievements. He shuts down during writing assignments, as we mentioned earlier, and often refuses to write at all. He talks a lot during class time as he is very social. When he has to move his clip down, it affects his mood for the whole rest of the day. The counselor believes that it is vital for his teacher, parents, and other faculty to ensure that George has an emotionally safe learning environment that provides him with the motivation he needs to succeed. For George's classroom teacher's perspective, she sees much potential in him. She sees that he struggles greatly with writing assignments. He has begun to develop in narrative skills, writing production, and research skills. He's still working on basic writing conventions such as spelling, punctuation, and grammar. He struggles with organizing his thoughts and writing them down. He has great ideas and exhibits higher order thinking skills. His teacher believes it is important to keep an open line of communication with his parents to keep them informed about his academic performance and his classroom experiences. This is a line between two stakeholders. She shared that when she spoke with his parents in a conference, she encouraged them to have George free write in English, write grocery lists, to-do lists, keep a journal, etc. For his ESOL paraprofessional's perspective, she has noted that his greatest struggle is diction because he often misspells the words and does not enjoy activities that target improvements in diction. Although he does enjoy his time with her as she does with him, he often gets a reward, such as a sticker when he does well. She administers time fluency tests, word work, phonic rules, alphabet games, and diction exercises. Lastly, George's perspective. He enjoys spending time with his friends at school. He really likes all of his teachers, his ESOL helpers, and paraprofessionals. They help him with learning English, and they are nice, he says. His favorite subject is math because he does really well in the subject, and it is easy for him compared to ELA subjects. George likes to read, but he absolutely hates writing, as we have seen and heard from multiple people again. He says that he has trouble writing down what he is thinking because he has to change the words in his head from Spanish to English, and it messes him up. He often ends up forgetting what he is going to write, and it gets him very upset. This leads to breakdowns, which we mentioned earlier. At home, he often ends up doing homework by himself because his parents work so much. He wants to be better at writing because he is embarrassed about not being a good writer. The areas for ELL improvement are writing, as we've mentioned multiple times throughout this presentation. He's struggling to find the motivation to participate in writing activities. He does have less interest in ELA topics, so we do need to provide him with more opportunities to be creative. For speaking, he has some trouble articulating specific ideas. He says that he can't organize his thoughts quite as much in his head, and that gives him difficulty with delivery. He seems to appropriately answer questions with a focus on certain content with slight misdirection. He is taking time to answer the questions more than a typical English speaker would, obviously, and it becomes frequently disrupted by his determination to correctly express what he is trying to say. Additionally, George sometimes uses the wrong word when speaking, which can be a result of inadequate vocabulary acquisition. This creates a slight misunderstanding of what message George is trying to come across. His frequent errors in regards to grammar, selection of words, and word order can also obstruct meaning at times. For reading, he seems to omit certain letters in different words, which can create some visual insight into what George is experiencing when he is reading. He struggled with some low-frequency words such as electric, typewriter, impossible, and impatient. For his literacy activities and involvement, we have decided that creating a dialogue journal would be a great way to support George's writing skills development. Dialogue journals are a great low-stakes way for George to try out different strategies in writing, and it is a mode of communication between the teacher and the student. So George can express any struggles that he's having, any feelings that he's having towards writing through his writing. And he does not have the pressure of a graded assignment. It is more for the teacher and the student's communication. For the next activity, we have opinion writing. This is interest-based. So as we said earlier, George does not have a lot of interest in a lot of ELA topics. So giving him this type of differentiation is essential for his motivation. Picture mapping is a fun strategy that fuses drawing and writing. So although George does not like writing, maybe pairing it with something that is more quote-unquote fun would encourage him to write. It is a way for him to get his ideas into one area before he begins writing. So he says he struggles with organization in his head. If he can write it all out in a picture, then he may be able to sequence it better in his writing. Personal spelling dictionaries are an ongoing literacy activity that work across multiple content areas. This dictionary is that he can take it home, he can keep it in class, and anytime that he comes across a new word that he's unfamiliar with, he can write it in his personal spelling dictionary and write a definition or a sentence that helps define it. This will help him go back and refer to it if he has any times where he struggles with that specific word, and it helps him see his own progress. For his parents, we have already acknowledged that they are extremely supportive of his education, and it seems as if they're willing to help however they can. They do have limited time at home, so we suggest having an open line of communication with both the ESOL paraprofessional and the classroom teacher. This will help them understand what they are doing in the classroom and how they can help support that at home. The principal could change the systems in place regarding ESOL education. So we think that she should eliminate the pull-out programs and implement sheltered instruction. Right now, both language acquisition and content acquisition are remaining separate, and we believe that they need to be entwined to ensure its success in George's learning. The school counselor should see George more regularly and establish a relationship with him. The classroom teacher can establish a stronger relationship with the support she has available. This is the ESOL paraprofessional, principal, parents, school counselor, etc. Reaching out to them and being on the same page with them is very important. She could implement more support in his writing struggles. She should allow George more opportunities for creative writing activities, along with providing support and expressing those ideas. For the paraprofessional, in conjunction with the principal, the ESOL paraprofessional needs to eradicate her methods of pulling George out from the classroom and instead step into the classroom herself. Overall, George is a bright student with a great personality. He has a lot of academic potential, and he fares well with others. Here we have some reflection/discussion questions based on the whole case study. Aspects of literacy, the teacher project. So this is phase 4. We have created a brief lesson plan that targets what we really want to get out of George's instruction.